Hey guys, today I'm going to be reviewing the Shimano Tranx 200. Now this is like the newest member of the Tranx family, the smaller 200 size. Before they only had 3, 4, and 500 size, which are quite large reels. They're generally throwing for muskie or any kind of saltwater species. The 200 is basically like a larger size bass reel for anything you need, heavier line or stronger application. You could also use it for stripers or any kind of catfish or saltwater stuff like that. Although, if you're using it for saltwater, I would rinse it every time because it is not mag sealed or it doesn't have any special saltwater designation to it. But if you wash it every time, it should work fine. Definitely more of a freshwater reel though. But I've been using this Tranx 200 for the last year. I wanted a bigger reel that I could throw some glide baits on, so I'll show you guys what I got here. This is a Savage Gear Browser Extra Heavy 711 rod and has a moderate action to it. Very awesome rod. I got this on Tackle Warehouse for 65 bucks. And this thing, so like I said, has a moderate action. Has a really good bend to the tip there. So glide baits, this is my setup for anything with treble hooks, like bigger baits with treble hooks. This is the TK Tackle Bluegill Glide Bait, another phenomenal little bait here. 15 bucks for this thing, so it's very reasonably priced. Works extremely well. I've not had a chance to throw the Gantarel or the Gantarel Junior, so I can't say how they compare. But for 15 bucks, this thing has been a great fish catcher in Minnesota here for pike and bass. And unfortunately, this browser rod does not have a hook keeper, so I just put a little Calcoast Cali clip on there. Works extremely well. I got this spooled up with 20-pound test fluorocarbon. So fluorocarbon is pretty thick, 20-pound test, and this thing can hold a lot of it. Handles it extremely well. The Tranx, compared to like the Corrado or something like that, has much bigger handle and knobs on here, which is great for those power applications. Obviously, you're fishing bigger fish. You really want a strong handle, bigger levers on here, bigger handles to handle those big fish. This is the 200 HG, so if I'm not mistaken, that's like the 7.1 to 1 gear ratio, kind of in the middle between 6.21 and 8.1. And I don't even know if the Tranx 200 has an 8.1. I haven't really checked for a year, so I'm not sure. But for any kind of big bass applications, you really can't go wrong with this reel. Right around 200 bucks. You can probably get it a little bit cheaper on Amazon if it's on sale. I'd say the only thing that I would really compare to this for bass fishing or any kind of like freshwater fishing is the Daiwa Coastal 200. Another phenomenal reel. If I had to choose one or the other, I'd probably say the Coastal, because the Coastal you can get on Amazon for about $160, so it is cheaper. But the Tranx, if you really like Shimano reels or you really trust the Shimano and Tranx name, you really can't go wrong with this thing. It is an awesome reel. I would never not recommend it to anyone. For any type of power fishing, whether you're doing like frog fishing, flipping, or big swim baits or glide baits like this reel handles them phenomenally well. Great capacity on it, great drag power, drag works extremely well. The biggest fish I have handled on this was probably a 13 or 14 pound northern pike, and that's in my intro for this video. You'll see me holding it on my stand-up paddleboard. 36-inch pike, and that thing was extremely thick too, so this setup here handled it very well, even on the stand-up paddleboard, just pulling me around. So any type of big fish situation, freshwater, aside from muskie, I mean, if you're throwing a kind of smaller muskie setup, you probably could get away with using the Tranx here. But if you're throwing any huge muskie baits, I would definitely step up to the 300 or 400 Tranx. But bass fishing, heavy flipping, frogging, glide baits, swim baits, any other big applications, or even like striper fishing or anything like that, this reel is going to handle phenomenally well. More of a big fish and big gear setup, so this isn't something you're going to throw tiny baits on. I definitely recommend the Corrado or the SLX from Shimano or the Tatula from Daiwa if you're going to throw smaller baits. But the Tranx 200, you really can't go wrong throwing any heavier baits. So I'm going to get a couple specs on here for you guys quick, just so I can really fill you in, and then closing thoughts on the Tranx. Alright guys, just to give you like the final rundown on the specs of the Tranx, it does have 13 pounds of drag, so quite a robust drag on there. It comes in a 6.2 to 1, 7.2 to 1, and 8.5 to 1 gear ratio in right hand retrieves, and only a 7.2 to 1 in left hand. It does have Core Protect on it, which is a Shimano technology, so it is saltwater ready. I wasn't sure before. It is saltwater ready. It comes in at 8.3 ounces, which for a 200 size bait caster, pretty typical. Pretty light. You can throw it all day comfortably, I'd say. Unless you're throwing like giant baits on it. But if you're throwing just your average 1 ounce bait on there, it is pretty lightweight, so you're not going to have any problems with it. And then it does only have 3 ball bearings and 1 roller bearing, which I kind of found interesting. Like, a lot of times these higher end reels will have like 6, 7, even like up to 10 ball bearings. So having only 3 ball bearings on it is kind of weird, but I haven't really noticed. It's handled them extremely well. Cast well. It feels smooth, so apparently ball bearings are not the end-all be-all of reel performance. But just a couple other things for you guys. There's no side cast control on here, like a outside dial, anything like that to turn. Actually there is, but it's a little different. I'll show you guys. But it does have a centrifugal brake, so I just have 2 of those off and 2 of those on. So there's only 4 of them, so not a whole lot to dial in on the centrifugal brake and dial it into your specific needs there. But it does have another dial on here with 4 notches. So this one, actually 6. So this one's different than the Curado. So there's 6 different notches on here. You can dial it up or down depending on the needs. So with the 4 centrifugal brakes and the 6 different notches on the little cast control dial here, you can dial this thing in pretty well. I haven't had to mess with it too much. When you're throwing these heavier baits, I've just kind of found set it to play with it for 10 minutes, do a couple different settings, be a little bit over conservative, and it's dialed it in pretty well. I'm not changing much of the size for baits I'm throwing on this. They're all like around 1 ounce to 1.5 ounces. So I have not had to mess with the cast controls at all. It doesn't take very long to dial them in. But if this is going to be like one of your main bait casters and you're changing up between frogs, glide baits or swim baits, or like big crank baits or flipping and punching or anything like that, if you're using this as an all-around rod, you might have to mess with it a little bit. And it is a little more touchy. It's not like the Daiwa Coastal where you can just click on that Mag 4C 1 time up or 1 time down and just dial it in extremely fast. This one's definitely a little bit more tedious, but if you're using it mainly for one type of thing, you dial it in and then just keep it like that. It's very easy to dial. So again, the Tranx 200, would not hesitate to recommend this reel. It has been a powerhouse for me. Feels extremely strong, rigid, and smooth, despite only having 3 ball bearings in it, or 4 actually with a roller bearing, but handles extremely strong. And yeah, I think this thing's just going to last me quite a long time. It seems to be built extremely well, and I would not hesitate spending the $200 to get this reel. If you want something that dials in a little bit easier, I would definitely go with the Coastal 200. Or if you want something that's more of an all-around, go with the Coastal 200. I really don't think you could go wrong with either reel. So it's kind of, what's your preference? If you like Shimano, the Tranx 200 is phenomenal. If you like Daiwa, the Coastal 200, and Tatula 200 is also a phenomenal reel. So hopefully you guys found this video informative. Hopefully I answered some questions you may have about the Tranx 200. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments section. Subscribe for some more gear reviews and some more fishing videos coming in the future. And thanks so much for watching, guys. I will see you next time.